Wanted to get your reaction to how things unfolded here in Houston and sort of the crazy twists and turns this story really took and how it ended.
I'm um, I'm really not sure of what happened. I think it's been kind of vague as to who turned the tiger in and who surrendered the tiger. But whatever happened, I'm really happy that the tiger was safely in the hands of the police department last night and the animal shelter. And I'm even happier that it's going to the Armory. I never can get it right. Armory Cleveland's Black Beauty Ranch in Texas. They're accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries and part of the Big Cat Sanctuary Alliance, and good friends of ours there.
So what's in store for India once she arrives there? I mean, what type of facilities do they have, or what's it like? I guess is what people want to know.
Black Beauty Ranch is funded by the Humane Society of the United States. And so that is the 900-pound gorilla. If you want to get anything done to protect animals in this country, you really need the HSUS on your side. And they have built a state-of-the-art facility in Texas. So I think this cat is going to have, I understand the enclosure is like half an acre, and there's pools and grass and trees and everything a tiger could want for a tiger that's got to spend the rest of its life in captivity.
And explain to people why that is, why it has to spend the rest of its life in captivity.
Sadly, none of the cats who are born in captivity can ever go free. It's not legal, and they weren't native to the US. So they were born in the US, but they're native to India or to Siberia when we're talking about tigers. And because they weren't born over there in the wild, they can never be set free.
And is this like it's a no-brainer question, but could you describe just how much of a difference India's life will be like now in this type of setting compared to what his life was like in a residential area, in a house, where tigers are not meant to be?
One of the things that first struck me about seeing India roaming around in the front yard of that house in Houston was how much India was loving being in the grass. And I think this cat's probably been kept inside on a hard surface, never had the opportunity to be a cat and really connect with the earth. And that's what that cat's life is going to be like at the Black Beauty Ranch. It'll have all of the opportunity in the world to be as wild as he wants to be, and to run and to play and to swim. And at a accredited sanctuary, there won't be any people touching the cat or breeding the cat or exploiting the cat in any way. He'll get a far better diet than what can be prepared by people going to the grocery store and getting the cuts of meat that humans eat, and veterinary care like he's probably never had before.
Do you still have a lot of questions about where this tiger came from, who sold it to who, and sort of the criminal aspects of this? That those questions seem to be unresolved, or at least the answers weren't there last night during that press conference. I'm not sure if you saw it.
I find it really frustrating that you almost never find out where the cat was originally born, how it ended up in the hands of the people who got it. And it seems like that should be absolutely mandatory information that the press and the public should be able to know. People need to know how this sort of thing happens if they're going to end up having to live next door to these big cats.
Are you surprised that there were no charge, or there, at least to this point, there haven't been any charges against related to the tiger against Victor Cuevas's wife, who we believe turned over the tiger?
I am just appalled at how difficult it is to get law enforcement or our district attorneys to take wild animal charges seriously enough to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And they should. This was a very dangerous thing that this man did to the cat and to everybody that surrounded them. And to hear that they were passing this cat around from house to house, endangering all of those different people that never even knew that this was going on right next door to them.
Do you believe this happens or is happening more than we come to know? Is it this is rare that we're finding out about it, but is it happening in many areas of our country?
There's been more than 783 incidences that I know of. Those are the ones that ended up in the news of killings, maulings, and escapes by big cats since 1990. And so it does happen a lot more than anybody ever knows about. You'll never know about how many people were chasing their big cat through some neighborhood one night and managed to drag it back home before anybody happened to see it.
One, two more quick questions for you. Why do you believe you've seen the headlines for this story? It's captivated the world, really. It's an international story following every step of its development. Why do you think people have been so fascinated about India and her story and the backstory behind it? And have you ever seen this much attention on this type of case?
Anytime a tiger is loose, it usually gets international attention. It's just, it's been a while. It's been a couple of years and COVID happened and we all forgot what the world was like before then, but it does happen a lot more frequently than you might think. And I think the reason that people are talking about this and care about this is because everybody can imagine what it's like if they were that next door neighbor, if they were out there minding their own business, pulling weeds in their front yard and a tiger came up on them. I mean, that's a scary thing. And people shouldn't have to live with that kind of a concern. We got enough concerns without that.
Do you believe this will be the end of, uh, I guess the question is, are you hopeful that this is not the end of what we learn about this specific situation? Do you have questions that you still want answered and you think the public deserves to know?
I want to know where this cat was born. I want to know how it ended up in the hands of this person. They said, from what I read in the reports, that they've owned this cat for 9 months, which means they bought it when it was a cub because nobody gives away a newborn baby. They don't get rid of them until they're about 16 weeks old. And that's what I had assumed before, was it had been used for cub petting and then dumped into private ownership, maybe even for free, once it reached about 16 weeks of age. But they said they've had it for 9 months. That means they paid anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 for it, most likely. So who did they buy that from? Because that's illegal if it was across state lines that they did that.
And it, correct me if I'm wrong on the legality of all this, but are people who deal in these animals, are they all breaking the law as the law stands now?
No, unfortunately, the way the law is now, you can't sell a big cat across state lines as a pet. And we've been trying to close the loophole that says you can't have them as a pet since 2003. Every 2 years, we bring our bill before Congress and we get further each time. And it's a whole lot further right now than it's ever been. But I really think that it will pass this year and it will ban the cub petting, which is what drives all of the breeding, and it'll phase out the private ownership.
One final question for you. Could you tell or remind people something that struck me yesterday when I was listening to the lieutenant or the commander for the HPD talk about this, and you saw him right next to the tiger, and the tiger's owner was, sort of petting the tiger and kissing the tiger. On the day the tiger was out in the neighborhood, you saw Victor Cuevas actually, when he brought him into the house, he kisses him on his forehead or his nose. You can't really tell where, but he does kiss him. Um, this tiger clearly had a bond with these two. But the lieutenant said, or the commander said, it takes one split second of some trigger, and this tiger has the potential to hurt you. And it's not the cat's fault. It's just that's his nature. Could you remind people that why? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but these big cats are not meant to be pets, and just because they seem like they have a fondness for whoever their owners might be, it's extremely dangerous.
Well, there's several things going on in that to unpack. One is, if you have a domestic cat and you've ever stroked the cat's stomach, you can stroke that cat once, twice, maybe 3 times before the cat just tears you up. And it's the same thing with a big cat. You never know when the cat is just going to come, it's going to go all tiger on you, to quote Chris Rock. And the other thing is that these cats grow so fast. This was a 9-month-old baby. In the first year, this cat could be 200 pounds, and in the next couple of years, 500 or more. And then the last part of that is, one of the things that people use as a kind of smoke and mirrors when they're dealing with these tigers is to do what the mother would do to discipline her cubs, which is to blow forcefully into their nose. And when a cub gets that kind of reprimand from its mother, it just stops whatever it's doing and kind of freezes up. And so people do that acting like they're kissing the cat when actually they're threatening the cat and causing the cat to freeze up and not do whatever it was doing before. Another thing you'll often see is how they'll grab the cat like under the chin, like they're kissing it. What they're actually doing is there's a space between the teeth where they can hold that cat's jaw still and push their tongue against their teeth and cause it to bleed. And that usually will cause the cat to stop whatever they're doing. So it's just smoke and mirrors that these people have any kind of a relationship. And, as far as bottle feeding that cat, it should have been off the bottle in the first 8 weeks, but people keep them on the bottle to try and keep that dependency on them, which
As
is
someone
also horrible for them nutritionally.
as someone who fights all this and is trying to get this law passed, does it? I'm curious how you feel when you see these videos. I was off on Friday, but I saw them in my inbox. These just remarkable videos of this pretty large tiger, even though it's a couple months old, just frolicking in the house and playing on the floor with a human. I mean, it just boggled my mind. I'm curious what you thought when you saw those videos.
You should never do anything with a young tiger that you don't want to be doing with a 400-pound tiger. And the things that they were doing, like having the cat tugging on a rope, that's just teaching that cat to play that kind of tug of war. And someday that's going to be somebody's arm or their limb. And that's a really bad thing to be teaching the animal, which tells me these people knew nothing about what they were doing with this cat. And like I said earlier, the nutritional value of milk is so poor compared to what this cat should have been eating. And it probably was getting other food. It looked like it was in a good, healthy weight. But what happens with these cats that are raised by humans is they have extremely frail bones and teeth because they don't get the calcium that they need from their mother's milk. And so him dragging that cat around by a rope and the cat's pulling on that with his teeth, that's doing so much damage to that cat's teeth. And he probably, by the time he's, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, won't have any teeth. So it's just, everything about it was just awful, awful. And I was really upset that in the end, when they were loading up the cat, everybody's standing around petting it. And it's like, for crying out loud, this is what caused this whole problem in the first place. Somebody saw that and stupidly thought, I want to do that too. And sure enough, you can pay enough and do that. And that just causes more people to want to touch it.
Is this a happy ending though for India?
It is. It's a very happy ending for India. As happy as it can be for a cat that's been born into captivity and now will have to spend 20 some odd years in a cage because somebody wanted to pay to have a cub or to pet a cub.